1966, they changed the boundary on 3 wards, the 13th, 16th, and 23rd wards, and created the Orem 31st Ward. And I became bishop of the Orem 31st Ward. And at that time, we didn't have a stake center. All of our stake conferences were held in the Sear Theater. And after I became bishop, I was told that there was plans in the works for us to have them build a new stake center. And so we were told that at that time the church would pay 70% of the cost of the building, and each of the wards would have to assume each of us 15%. Well, the cost of this building was going to be about $570,000. Each one of us had something like $76,000 we had to raise. And so at the same time, they were building the Provo Temple, and each ward had to raise $5,000 for that, for the Provo Temple. So we had this all at the same time. My counselors and I got together and split up the work. My first counselor assumed the responsibilities of the welfare farm and the shopping center farms. We had about 75 acres of farms that we got all the fruit off from for about 3 years. And that raised about $75,000 for the stake. And then my second counselor assumed the responsibility of all the donated labor on the building, and I assumed the responsibility of raising the money. We had each one of the ward families come into into the bishop's office, and I let them set their own what they could afford to pay. So after we got the building built, I went to him and I said, "President, I'd like to film our dedication." "Oh, DeLynn, we can't do that. You know we can't take pictures in the chapel." I said, "It won't cost us to take anything. I'll pay for it. But let me try it." "Oh," he says, "I don't think we ought to try it." I said, "Let me try it. And if President Brown says you can't do it, we'll quit." He was as nervous as a thief in church over this, but he finally said, "Okay, I'll let you try it." In those days, the film wasn't strong enough that you had to have bright lights for filming. And President Brown had just gotten out of the hospital, and his eyes reported his problem. But we went ahead and set it all up and started filming, and President Brown never stopped us. So we got it filmed. I was on the High Council down in BYU, and Joseph White was in the stake presidency, and he's the one that was over all the copying of films and everything. He told me, he says that this is the only filming of a dedication that I know of. I don't think it's ever been done before. And of course that was in '68, so I don't know if there's been any since then. If not, we've got something pretty special.
Bishop Ron Hyde had told me my responsibility as his counselor was to take care of what needed to be done as far as our end of that building is concerned. So we had to have some volunteer help to do certain chores that were outlined by the contractor, and so it was mostly just manual labor that we did in helping them do the things that needed to be done to build the building. It was an interesting time when we moved in as a ward into the building, knowing that we had been responsible for a lot of that work that had been done. But I do remember that when we worked on it, we thought of it as our building. It was very instrumental in our feelings towards the building itself.
President Ross would come over and ask if I'd be willing to install, or willing and had time to install paneling in the stake president's office and the High Council room. I told him I could work that out, and so when I got that done, then the bishop had me do his office. Then they had me install the indirect lighting, oak railings up on the ceiling. Then after that, they came to me and asked if I could build a high council table that was 6 foot wide at the wide end and 4 foot wide at the small end and 20 feet long. And I says, yeah, I can build that. The only thing that I got jumped on about was because at that time the buildings were all designed with a flat roof over the foyers and they all leaked. And I told the contractor if he'd go to the committee and get him to authorize a pitched roof, they'd cure that problem, because they was coming back and fixing it almost every year. And he says, you stay out of my business. Eventually they did, yeah. And I don't know whether that contractor was still effective at that time or not, but they did do that finally.
Dr. Laycock was director of orchestras at BYU, and Lucy's an accomplished organist. And our old organ in Sharon First Ward was just a piece of junk, and so we thought, pipe dream, let's see, could we have a pipe organ in our building? And it just went from there. We knew they're expensive, $60,000 plus for one of the organs. But we sent the proposal up to Salt Lake, and they said, sure, you could have one, but you have to pay for it yourself. So, board members donated, stake members donated, some very influential people donated, I don't know how much, but it was a lot. And we started working with the Wicks Organ Company in Chicago, and it just went forward as we would have dreamed. Well, historically, organs are played, pipe organs are played in Europe, even though they were built in the 1500s. They're still being used and almost worshipped because they play such beautiful music. So that's the hope. But an electronic organ would last maybe 10 to 12 years and have to be replaced. But a pipe organ lasts forever, given some good care. LDS chapels most often do not have a pipe organ, and especially to have 2 pipe organs in the same stake is just plain lucky. Well, the installation was just plain exciting. It took 2 weeks. Brother Dick Mitchell lives in North Salt Lake, works for Wicks Organ Company, and he came down and brought a team from Chicago to start constructing it. Pipe organs are just like playing a bunch of whistles, one by one. The air goes through the pipes, as you can see them out in front there, and each one of those is a whistle. So if you go from the left-hand side clear across to the right-hand side, you're actually playing a whole rank of pipes. So if you started with the bottom, going clear to the top, you'd be going chromatically all up the keyboard. Really fun.
We were going to a church down here on 8th South, in the Green Church we called it then. It was the Green Church. It was an old church and it was painted green. And they announced that we were going to do a steakhouse. And Ron Hyde was our bishop at the time. And I was in a primary presidency, and Darlene Barrett, Sandra Chatterley, and Edith Eriks, the 4 of us. And a fellow down in the river bottoms told us that he was a Brother Johnson, lived down there, and he said, if you ladies would like to collect bottles, I'll buy any bottle you can clean for me for 10 cents each. He had a lot of beehives. So we told the little children they could collect money and we'd have a process and we'd buy something special for the steakhouse. But we each put a big bushel basket out there, and the little kids would bring, you should have seen the collection of bottles. Dirty, we told them, didn't matter, just bring bottles, but have a lid on them. And we washed those. Each of us would have to wash those bottles and have them ready. And that man did pay us. Brother Johnson paid us 10 cents for any size, shape, or bottle. Well, the little kids were so thrilled, and we got enough money that we ordered the first hymn books for the steakhouse. Well, the children thought it would say something that it was done by the primary children, and it didn't. And they were kind of disappointed when it said Sharon steak on it, you know. Well, they did thank them over the pulpit for their gifts. Each group of children had done something, and it was very fun. And it was a big excitement for us because up till that time we'd been putting children with curtains between them on the stage, up in the attic part. We had them in the gym. We tried to put classes around. So we get down here, and then there's just every kind of room we could possibly want in our lives, you know.
When they assessed each family in the ward so much money, I don't remember how much it was, but you could do whatever, or you could put your time in for your donation. And we had a fridge outside, and I don't know where we got the eggs, but we sold eggs for a long time. People would come, and we had a jar in, and they'd take the eggs out and put money in the jar. And that was one of the side things that we did to help. And I don't know, they did something, and the wires got mixed up in the attic, and it started the building on fire. So we had a fire, and the engines came, and they filled the hall up and on that brand new floor, and it was soaked in water. So we mopped and got it all out. But that was the most frightening thing that happened when we built it. It was just so fun. We just had a marvelous time we got real close as a ward because we were together so much to build the church. But anyway, that's my contribution.